Okay, let's cross over to London now and speak to Michael Amoah. He's an African analyst and a senior visiting fellow at the London School of Economics. Welcome to you, Michael. I want to have a look at just the way that ECOWAS has behaved so far. So the group originally threatened to use force if President Bazoum wasn't returned to power within a week. They made a clear deadline. The deadline passed, they did nothing. They then said they wanted to resolve things by diplomacy. Then, out of nowhere, yesterday, they announced they were activating this standby force. It suggested they might be going to use force. No, they've again said they want to use diplomacy. This is giving the impression, to me, of an organisation that is flip-flopping on the use of force. Is that how General Tiani is going to perceive that? And how does he take them seriously?
Well, it's quite... I think ECOWAS yesterday tried to do some face saving, and they've made it quite clear that the standby force is actually going to convene. Actually, they are meeting tomorrow in Accra. All the ECOWAS chiefs of defense staff are meeting on Saturday tomorrow in Accra to begin putting together that standby force. What is interesting, though, is that the communique issued by ECOWAS yesterday does say to restore constitutional order to the Republic of Niger. Now, that could be interpreted in two ways. It could be interpreted to mean that we want you to reinstall the deposed President Bazoum, or it could also mean that, in practical terms, the junta is already in place and we can't get the junta out. So we're going to give you time to conduct elections and restore constitutional order, a democracy. So in a way, it makes ECOWAS even a bit more ambiguous. And we really wish that ECOWAS would come up with a further statement to come out clearly to say exactly what they want the standby force to prepare to go and do, whether to bring back Bazoum or a new democratically elected president.
It looks like ECOWAS is just struggling to come up with a clear direction and stick with it. Do you think there's division within the group itself?
There is division within the group itself, but also, in practical terms, I cannot see how Nigeria will have clearance or authorization to even allow its defense forces to be part of a standby force to invade Niger to do anything. We know that the northern Nigerian states will not cooperate, let alone the Senate that will actually authorize the state to give up its forces to go and fight. And we also know that it's going to be a little difficult for Benin to agree for the invasion to commence from its borders. So really, it looks quite clear that the military force is not going to intervene. Meanwhile, we have a semblance of officialdom currently in Niger, with a prime minister and a cabinet of 21 ministers and a new regime seeming to want to get on with governing the country. As I've said before, it boils down to one thing, that sooner or later, there's going to be some sort of meeting between ECOWAS and the new junta, whereby some sort of agreement is put on the table to give them a timetable or come up with a timetable of a detailed process of how they're going to really govern the country and head towards restoring it into constitutional order. And in this case, perhaps maybe new elections. Because really, for any military junta, they've already crossed the point of no return. And any intervention to want to usurp that could result in the deposed president losing his life. And that's really not what ECOWAS wants. Besides that, citizens in West Africa, mostly Nigeria and other parts of the sub-region, really would want to see a standby force convened rather to go and fight terrorism and dismantle the terrorist groups in the sub-region, not to go and depose another regime that's already in place. So it's quite difficult for ECOWAS to really, and I think that ECOWAS needs to come up with a clear statement as to what they really want to achieve with the standby force.
Michael, great to speak to you. Our guest, Michael Amoah, African analyst, senior visiting fellow at the London School of Economics there.